So today we're going to talk about how you're going to make sure your marketing is actually investment and not an expense. So when I say that, I mean you should be getting a return on your investment. So when you pay whomever to help you with marketing, or you're just paying Google for your ad spend, whatever it is, whatever your marketing expense is, you should get more back because it should be an investment. And there's some simple ways to figure that out. And we've made a little calculator to help you along the way. So first I'm going to kind of teach you the basic fundamentals that you need to know so that the calculator makes sense to use, and you know what metrics we're trying to improve so that your ROI gets better and better. And then we'll just go into the actually using the calculator. So when you are trying to figure this out, you'll know how to use it. And if you have any questions along the way, just give us a chat and a question over chat and we'll answer it. But let's go. First, you've probably seen a marketing funnel or sales funnel, but I wanted to make one specifically for orthodontic marketing and explain how it works. Is really so much of digital marketing, and we're really going to focus on return on investment on digital marketing efforts. This stuff does work for traditional marketing, but it's geared mostly towards digital marketing. So when someone enters a funnel, they're a stranger, which means they don't really know, you don't know who they are, they barely know who you are, and they've just first become aware of your practice even existing, right? So then as they move down the funnel, there's prospects. So they're gaining some interest in your brand. They're learning a little bit more, and they're kind of interested and kind of curious. And then when they become leads, that's a big conversion step. They've gone from interested people to actually doing something that gives you their information. So they've filled out a form, they've called you, they're scheduling a virtual consult, they're chatting you, they're messaging you on Facebook. They've now connected with you, so you now have their contact information and they're interested. And then, of course, from a lead, we want to turn them into a scheduled appointment, and a scheduled appointment we want to turn into new starts. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this so we can understand these different phases of that journey. So strangers, you want to make sure that they consider your practice as an option because they're just learning, they have a problem, they need a solution, they don't necessarily know who you are, and they're just learning about you. So we want to find ways to get your brand in front of them. So you turn strangers into people who know about you and are interested. So this is when things like making sure you have a great brand that looks credible and people actually feel you're legit and professional and you look good and it feels good. Make sure the website works. You can have signs, brochures, things that are going to create awareness of you and make sure that you look credible, professional, and like someone that they'd actually consider using, right? So that's the first step. Just make people aware that you exist. And then we want to turn those people into interested prospects. Some things you can do with that is SEO, online advertising, social media. This is when you're starting to tell your story and you're getting a little bit more interested in who you are. So that's just a few ways to do that. The next step, which is the most important one, is turning them into leads. We want to convert those people into actual contacts, into leads that we can do something with and nurture. And we can do that with downloadable content. Optimizing the site for conversion is extremely important. I'll talk a little bit about that. Tracking where you're getting calls and leads. So if you know where they came from, you can kind of find out where you should put your money and take it away or spend more money if you know what's actually creating leads for you. And then differentiating, making sure that your differentiators are very clear. So if you're the most affordable practice, you're the friendliest practice, you have custom braces, just make sure you know what differentiates you. And we have a few different talks about that you could check out. And then scheduled appointments, we want to encourage those people to actually schedule an appointment so we can help nurture them digitally, email marketing, some automated stuff. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that's another conversion event. And then the final one, new starts. There is really another one where starts actually refer more business to you, and I'll explain that a little bit more. But for this exercise, we're trying to turn people who just found out who you are down to actual starts. So let's talk a little bit about those little conversion steps and how that might work. So strangers, let's just say out of everyone that's coming to your site, we'll just use your website as an example, 50% of those actually become people that are interested in your brand. They didn't leave, they found out what they were looking for, whatever you're saying, it sounds good to them, your site looks professional, you haven't done anything to scare these people away, they actually start digging into your brand and learning about you. So let's say that's 1,000 people come to your site in a month. So if 50% of those people become interested prospects, then we have 500 interested prospects. Now, you're not necessarily, for the most part, going to be able to measure how many people become prospects, but the next one you definitely can measure. So now that we've paid for the 1,000 people, one way or the other, we've always paid for that traffic, whether it's directly online or because we have a great site, we have great blogs, SEO, or word of mouth, whatever. We've paid for those 1,000 people in some sense, one way or the other. We have 500 prospects. Then let's say 3% of those prospects become a lead. So again, I'm saying someone that actually connects with you somehow. They fill out a form, they've asked to schedule an appointment, they want to do a virtual consultation, they've given you a chat, anything that makes them enter their information so that you have it now in your database and you can nurture them. And 3%, by the way, if that really would mean about 1.5% of those 1,000 would become leads if you're trying to do the math. And that's a conservative number, just so if you're wondering. So out of those 1,000 visits we paid for, we have 15 leads. And all this is just made up, but I kind of give you round numbers. So now we have some people that we can follow up with and try to turn those people into scheduled appointments. Now, some of them are going to go straight from strangers to scheduled appointments. And that, of course, does happen. They come to your site, they schedule the appointment, they're done. And we love those people because we've saved so much energy and time when that happens, but you can't count on that sort of behavior because that's not traditionally what people are going to do unless they're just bought in already because someone referred them and they're going to use you because they were referred and that's it. That's the old way. And that's how people used to make these decisions. But the majority of people don't make decisions like that anymore. They need more nurturing. So anyway, we have 15 leads out of that 1,000. And then let's say 25% of those leads become a scheduled appointment. So we have about 3.75 scheduled appointments. And then 75% of those scheduled appointments become starts. We end up with about 3 starts out of those 1,000 strangers. So this is generally how all digital marketing funnels work, just applied to an orthodontic practice. But I want you to understand that when someone says top of the funnel, they literally mean this. This is the easiest step if you have a budget, because you can just throw money at it and get strangers to your website and to your brand, assuming you have the budget. But each one of these, if you can see, if we can improve each one of these percentages with actually doing a good job with our branding, having sophisticated campaign, that's when we start getting more and more for our money. Because I can turn this 2.8 starts to 280 starts if I just spend $10,000 or $100,000 a month, right? I did that math right. So you can always increase the budget and get more starts. It may not be one-to-one that way. But if you can't do that and you have a certain budget and that's all you have, focusing on these conversion moments is what's going to get you more starts. And ideally, you're going to do both. As you grow and you have more money to spend in your marketing, you spend more money and you get more starts and you increase conversion and make it more efficient. Doing it all at the same time is going to have a kind of a snowball effect. But this is more or less how the marketing funnel works. So I want you to just remember this when we're talking later about the ROI. So next, I want to just show you our methodology in general for doing this. So if you want to really work on everything, increase the amount that people are coming to the top of the funnel, and increase each one of these percentages so that you're getting more for your money, this is what we suggest. This is generally our methodology for doing it. Oh, and by the way, just so if you wanted to have the math done for you, 18.6% of those leads, these 15, became starts just in this particular example. I remember that because in the calculator, we're just going to put in we're going to get those leads and then they're just going to become starts, because that's generally the metric that we're following with the clients, even though we're always improving all of these. So when you're working with us, this is our methodology that we use to make and grow practices. We call it our growth methodology. So first you start with improving the brand if it needs it. So this involves things like improving the logo. Is your logo 20 years old and it was never that good in the first place? And it might be time to improve it. Does it really work for your audience? And that's really fundamental, which is why the more fundamental something is branding, the more important it is. So you want to make sure you have a really great logo that not just you as the owner like, but your patients like. You know, it needs to appeal to your audience, not necessarily to you. And when we're building logos, sometimes that's a fun conversation because the doctor who's we're creating a logo for us, they're not really sure. And we say, why don't you do a little survey? And all of a sudden they found out that everyone loves it. And that's when you have to really, that's when it becomes obvious to you, wait a minute, I'm really serving my audience. It's not necessarily what I like that I care about, though everyone always likes them. The logos, of course. And then next is identity. That's everything connected to the logo, business card, your brochures, all the collateral, all the signage, everything else that is connected to the brand. And then everything that's designed in the office, including signs, brochures, everything that is designed by someone. Is that done well? Is it professional? Are your forms professional? Is everything that your audience is touching and feeling feel professional and match your brand? Is it consistent? And then of course the website. The website absolutely has to be professional and convert. If you have a website that looks like someone, you know, in high school did it, then you have a big problem because that's where so many of your customers are seeing you. That is their first impression. The website is very, very critical. If you do nothing, if you only have the budget for one thing this year and your website isn't great, fix that and your logo. But the website is critical. So if you need to improve that step, then start there really before you do anything else. Because if you don't, all the other efforts are going to be sabotaged by the poor website, the poor brand, the poor logo, the poor design. If everything's great, you move on to the next step. The next is attract. So this is where we're trying to attract those people to start at the top of that funnel that we were just talking about. How do we get people to the top of the funnel? First, we identify who we want to enter the funnel. So we do that through buyer persona exercise. And if you've watched any of the videos before, you know who I'm talking about. We want to do at least 3 buyer personas, single mom, teenagers, etc. Not just demographic, remember, but we're going to talk about behaviors, their pain points, etc. You can learn more about that in one of our videos or research, but we wanted to decide who we're trying to attract first, because that's going to set the stage for what campaigns we're going to run. Next, if you haven't had it done, do the keyword research to determine what phrases people are typing when they're looking for your service. And that's really part of search engine optimization. So those are really wrapped up in the same thing. But search engine optimization is going to help people find you when they're doing organic searches, which means they're on Google, they're looking for an orthodontist, and they find you. So you want to keep increasing your search engine optimization value of your website so you get more and more organic traffic. And this is a long-term strategy, but you're not paying every single month except for your SEO manager who keeps improving it, but you're not paying a Google or a big ad budget to get this traffic. This is more or less free traffic, and SEO is cumulative. As long as the algorithm doesn't change and sabotage you, which it sometimes does, but for the most part, your SEO value, if you're working on it properly the right way, it's going to increase, increase, and increase, which means your visits to your website to the top of that funnel are going to grow and grow over time, and that's what you want. So search engine optimization is one way to get people to the top of the funnel. The next is online advertising management. For us, we manage people's Facebook, Instagram, Google, and Pinterest. Those are the ones that we really like for orthodontists. When those have a good cost per click, a good conversion, cost per conversion when they're done right. So you want to make sure that you're working in, I would say, minimum Google ads, Facebook. I say Facebook / Instagram because when you're paying for ads, they're the same thing. that's really going to get traffic to the site. And that's going to get people to the top of the funnel to become aware of you. And then media buying, really in this case, I mean, someone is helping you or you're doing it yourself. This is for traditional advertising. It's something in the newspaper, a billboard, a magazine, etc. That's if everything else is working and you have the extra money. I would never do that before digital marketing because it's very expensive, but it does have its place in a holistic marketing campaign. And then blogs, really that helps SEO tremendously. When you're writing those blogs, you're going to help increase SEO value of your site because that's really generally the only place that's going to have more content on your site. And we did a presentation about SEO that I recommend you take a look at. And we talked about why blogs are important. But I definitely suggest that you have consistent blogs going up. I really suggest at least once a week, 4 times a month would be ideal for a single office. Blogs are very essential. And it's not just helping with SEO. It's helping make you a resource. When someone has a question and they're typing it in Google and your blog answers it, they're going to go to your site and you'll become the resource. You'll become the trusted person. And then social media management, organic posts, you're going to get attention. People are going to share it. That is going to be a source of new traffic and help make your brand more attractive to people. And then PR, similar to media buying, but we're talking about editorial. So we're getting you into paper. You did something great for the community, whatever is newsworthy. If you have someone working on your PR, they're going to get you in those magazines, newspapers, online, wherever, to get people's attention, again, to your brand and drive traffic to the practice, to the brand, to the website. These are all the tools that we use to help get people to that top of the funnel. And whether you're using someone like us or not, I suggest you at least spend a little bit of time on each one of these. You should address each one of them at least at some point, right? So that's getting people to the top of the funnel. So now as we go down, we want to convert those people, right, into leads. We're skipping over the prospect step in here because we can't really measure that, but we're going from top of the funnel people to leads. So now that we have those people at the top of the funnel, we want to convert them into leads. So what are some of the ways we can do that? One is to create content that is valuable enough for people to give you their email address. So you could do a really good infographic about what it's like for your first visit. You could do an Invisalign assessment of like a little quiz. It's some sort of content that's interesting enough and valuable enough to your audience that they're willing to trade their information for it. That's one way to convert someone into a lead. Video in general is a good way to keep people on your site longer, and it's going to make them more likely to convert into a lead because people like to watch videos. They don't like to read as much as they used to. And the longer they're on the site, the more engaged they are, the more likely they're going to turn into a lead. And then just keeping your website managed, just making sure it's up, it's working, the pages are fresh, everything works properly. If you have a slow website, for instance, it takes too long to load, that is going to have a huge influence on your conversion in a negative way because people just bounce right off a site that takes too long to load because no one has time for that anymore. And then conversion rate optimization, that in general, that's really the bread and butter of this step. And that is things like looking at the data on your site to see where people are converting, when they're converting, what are they doing when they're converting. For our clients, we can actually watch people on the site. We have recordings and we can see what people are doing. Are they actually doing what we want them to do on that landing page? We can look at heat maps and see where are they clicking. Are they clicking on the button we care about or not? But if you don't have that stuff, you can use Google Analytics to figure out a lot of this information if it's set up properly. Knowing where people are converting, when they're converting, what's making them convert is going to help guide you on what steps to take to increase it. Call tracking is great too. It's another piece of data. If you have call tracking set up on your site, you can see a lot of times what people are doing before they called you on your website. So did they find you during that Google campaign that you're doing? Facebook, were they on Facebook? Did you just find you organically through your SEO efforts? Did they call a number that you had on a sign or billboard or brochure that you put together? When you can track where those calls came from, that helps determine what's working so you can spend more time and money on that, and what's not working so you can stop spending time and energy on that. And then organizing all this into a campaign is very important for conversion. So when I'm talking about a campaign, I mean, let's say we picked a buyer persona. So we've made an ad specifically to track that buyer persona. We've made blogs specifically to track that buyer persona. We've made emails specifically to track that buyer persona. You organize the campaigns to get the buyer persona to attract them to your brand. So organizing the campaigns and not just willy-nilly doing things is going to make a big difference on how effective your marketing campaign is and how well your conversion works. So all these things are really important when you're trying to convert people at the top of the funnel to kind of get them a little bit farther down. So now let's turn those leads into starts. What are some of the ways you can do that? You can send out periodic emails at least once a month. I was watching a video with Ryan Deese, I think it's Deese or Dice, and he said, if you're not sending out an email at least once a month, then obviously you hate money. That says it all. If you're not sending, email is not dead. If you're not using email right now, you're sabotaging your marketing efforts because you're not keeping your brand top of mind. And we like to send at least one to the patients. So we're just keeping them top of mind, encouraging them to talk about us. And then of course to your leads and non-patients, people that haven't started yet. We want to encourage them to schedule an appointment and start. Lead nurturing is different ways, and we talked about this in other videos. How can we nurture those leads with communication to specific buyer personas, if possible, through email and other means to build that relationship with them so that they're more likely to commit when they're ready? And then you always want to measure everything. If you're not measuring everything with analytics and looking at the reports, how can you take strategic action? You don't want to just do things on a guess or a feeling. You need to look at the data and decide what to do next. That's part of what's so great about this ROI calculator, because it'll help you at a very high level determine if what you're doing is working. So at least you have somewhere to start. But start with getting Google Analytics on your site. It's free and it has a huge amount of data in it. If you don't have it on your site or you don't control it and your marketing company controls it, but you never get to see it, ask them to make you the administrator and owner of that account. They can still use it and do whatever they need to do with it, but you always should own your own Google Analytics account. That is very, very important. That is your data, and you can accumulate data over years and years in that account. Especially if you ever want to sell your practice, that is data you can use to show people how much your website value has grown over the years. You never want to lose access to that historical data. And you definitely want to be checking it at least once a month to see if what they're doing is working or what you're doing is working, if the marketing in general is working for you. And then database management is make sure the data is clean, because we're creating all these leads, we're putting them hopefully into a CRM. We like to put leads into a customer relations management system. Like HubSpot has a free CRM. We really love that one. And then when we become patients, of course, they're in the patient management system, but the lead should be somewhere else, because you don't want non-leads in the patient management system unless it's made to handle that, and not very many of them are. And you want to make sure you have that patients don't get promotions ever, right? They're already patients. We don't want them coming back and asking for a discount. And if you segment them even further, we know who their buyer persona is. We're sending people who are interested in Invisalign, information about Invisalign. We're sending people that aren't interested in braces, stuff about braces, etc. The more personalized that communication, the more effective you are going to be at converting those people into starts. So you have to manage the data so that's even possible. That's like the first step. If it's not, the data is not clean, you can't send them personalized communication because you can't segment them, right? And then if you need help selling, if you're getting so many leads that your team can't call them all back, then get some support, figure something out, hire someone in-house, get someone else to do it. But it's very important that when you get a lead, they hear from you as soon as physically possible. Really, you want to do it within the first 10 minutes if you can. But you definitely do not want to be waiting days or weeks to follow up with a lead. It's the sooner, the better. And it's not just following up with leads when they first become a lead. You also want to now nurture them later, call people back if you haven't heard from them. Just check in, especially right now with everything that's going on. Let's check in with everyone and make sure that they're okay, and just keep our brand top of mind and show that we care and help keep building that relationship. So I definitely encourage you to have some sort of either sales team or have that part of someone's job in your staff, or outsource it, do something. But sales in general, even though everyone doesn't love that word, is super important for your practice, because a lead needs to be turned into a start, and having a sales support is what's going to help you do that. So now that we have starts, and this is where the funnel ended in our previous slide, but once people are patients, we want to encourage them to now tell more people about you to get them back into that top of the funnel. You want patients to drive people back to the top of the funnel so they can go through your process and become more starts. So have a great referral program. Do something to manage your reviews. Your reviews should never stay stagnant. Even if you have 5.0 reviews in Google, but you might only have 10 reviews with 5.0. Who's more credible, someone with 10 reviews at a 5.0 or someone with 150 reviews at 5.0? Or maybe your reviews are hurting in Yelp, but they're good in Google. You should address the Yelp reviews, or Facebook, whatever it is. You want to make sure when people are doing that research about your brand and they're deciding who to use, great reviews are one of the first things people look at, because they trust other people's opinions about you way more than they trust all the stuff we're sending them. Because you're the practice, of course, you're going to paint a great picture about yourself. But when people see other people's opinions about you, those are the ones that they really trust. So reviews are extremely important. Do some sort of process that helps get better reviews. And then email marketing, when I say that, it's the same emails, but emails to patients, just to keep us top of mind, keep them in the family, keep that relationship going. That's what emails to patients are all about. We do want to encourage them also to refer more business to us, but you're not actually doing that ask very often, because who wants to get an email all the time asking just to give them a referral? You just want to keep building that relationship and, create raving fans that tell other people about you and the brand. And then, of course, monitor your reputation, especially online, especially these days. If someone's talking about you and they're not saying great things, it's better that you know it as soon as possible so that you can react as soon as possible. But even if someone's saying really great things about you, you want to be in that conversation. Say thank you. The same thing with reviews. If someone says something great about you, say thank you. If someone's not saying something great about you, respond to them in a professional way. You always want to make sure you're in the conversation, because if you're not, you have zero control over the conversation. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understand our methodology. And if you need help, we'd love to help you. But if you want to do it yourself, you can. I'm just encourage you to have a plan for each one of these. Make sure that you're tackling them. And you can start with some of them. You don't have to do all of them at once. But I can guarantee that if you are working on these and you keep improving, your practice is going to continue to grow. When you have a program that is this comprehensive, it's impossible for it not to grow, unless you have something just completely sabotaging you that's out of left field, which your practice consultant can help you with if you'd have that problem. All right, so then let's look at the actual calculator. And I believe you'll understand it a lot better now. So you can download this on the Ortho Thrive page if you want to play with it. But let's go over just how it works. So you put in your current number of active patients. How many people are on contract right now paying you monthly? Put in your average monthly payment. If you don't know it, I'm sure your financial coordinator can help you out. That'll give you your monthly gross. If you just know your monthly gross and you don't know these, just put it in there and override the formula. But these are easy. So the overhead, if you don't know it, I put in the average overhead according to dental economics, but put yours in if you know it, like how much overhead is is coming out of your gross. So start with this as the fun. We need to know how much is coming in now, so you have some sort of control. And then this is when you want to start playing with the numbers for the marketing. So let's say you're working with someone and their average monthly fee to manage your marketing is $5,500. All these in yellow, by the way, are the fields that you can change, and it'll affect the other fields. Software, I put 800 in there. I know that's high for a lot of you, but that's a price of HubSpot Pro. And especially if you're doing it in-house, this is a great piece of software that pretty much does everything in one piece of software. So if you have a good campaign, it actually will pay for itself. And if you are interested in it, just email me because I can save you a couple $1,000s on the setup fee. Even if you don't want us to help you with anything else, I can at least save you that money. And then I put $1,000 for the spend. And when I'm saying that, I'm saying this is the money you're paying Facebook, you're paying Google all together. I recommend that's the minimum that a practice spends. I put 500 as a minimum in this note, but honestly, at this point, it should be $1,000. But 500 is at least, that's the minimum if you just want to start gathering data and figuring out what's working and you just need to start something because you have nothing going on. But I would say at least $1,000. So that's going to go all together. Say your total 7,300, and then here's the budget. That's just all of that multiplied, right? So just put your numbers in here, or your forecasted numbers, if you want to figure out if it makes sense and you're talking to someone. Then let's talk about how much does it cost per lead for online ads. If you don't know this, you can, and you're doing it yourself. I did a video with our Google Ads calculator. That'll help you with this. Google Ads actually will tell you the cost per conversion if you have it set up properly. In Google Ads, it does. Facebook doesn't necessarily do that. If you are working with a marketing company, ask them what it is. Say, what is this number for each of the platforms? What's my cost per conversion for Google Ads? What is it for Facebook, Instagram? What is it for Pinterest? Whatever you're using, they should have an idea, and for most of the time, a very specific, detailed number of the cost per conversion event. When I say that, in Google Ads, it means they saw your ad and they either clicked on it and went to your site, or they called the number on it, etc. What did they do to convert? Now, actually, excuse me, it's not just a clicking to go to your site. It's going to your site and then doing something else. So, which means you get a lead from it. It depends how it's set up. What you define as a conversion. That's when it's nice to have someone help you out with it. But whatever you care about, know what that cost per conversion event is. So if you know that, I connected this data to the digital ad spend. So for $1,000, if you're paying it $30 per lead, you're going to get 33.3 leads out of that. And then I put leads from other sources. So we have leads that we get strictly from paying for online advertising. Remember, that was one of the pieces in the attract bucket. But we also get leads from our social media efforts, from search engine optimization, from events, from word of mouth. There's tons of other places to get leads. And it's good to know how much is from online and how much is from everything else. And if you can keep digging down, you can go even further and figure out how much are you getting from organic leads as well. That's possible to kind of figure out. But let's just say this is your numbers. So you're getting whatever that is, 40, 48, something like that. Then the average new patients per month, if you're getting 25% of those leads are becoming patients, that's another number that you can get from your marketing firm, or you can derive it through Google Analytics and some other data mining. But you want to have an idea of how many of these leads actually become starts. I mean, that's a critical piece of information, because if only 1% of your leads are becoming starts, you have a big problem. You're getting like really poor leads, or there's something really bad happening in the office. There's something happening during that customer's journey from when they liked you enough to give you the information, but from that point to actually starting, it didn't work out. Was it the cost of your services is too high? Is someone in the staff sabotaging you? Are the quality of the leads really poor because the marketing firm is just attracting the wrong buyer persona? And that is just one of the things. Don't always blame that, because that's usually not the case, but sometimes it is. But you really need to understand that, because you've already paid for, remember, those people at the top of the funnel. If they're getting sabotaged right at the end there, you just kind of thrown all that money away. That's part of the reason that if you're not super savvy in marketing, it's great to hire someone, because they should understand how to increase that percentage. Anyway, so with these numbers, you're going to get about 12 new patients a month, 133 a year. So this is your average gross based off these numbers here, coming into the office. Estimated overhead not including, so this is estimate, this is the 75%, so this will change when this number changes. This is how much overhead you have. Like I said, this is the marketing budget based off whatever numbers you enter here. And then the estimated increase in annual gross revenue. How much more are you going to make gross when you apply this much money and get these results through your marketing efforts? What is your gross increase going to be? And then I'm assuming, and I'll explain that later, like you might have to get some more staff or some sort of expense to service more clients. That number is something you probably want to talk to your consultant about. Sometimes you don't need to add anything, because if you can find efficiencies in your office through more virtual appointments, more Invisalign cases versus braces, using custom braces, all those things that we've talked about with prior guests, there's ways to get this down to zero, and that would be great, because you want to get as many patients as physically possible with your existing staff. And if you can increase that bandwidth so they can handle even more than they can currently, that's when you can really start pumping some more energy into this, because your margin will be really good. All right, anyway, so in this case, the projected ROI is 117%. So you know you're getting a positive ROI. So this is your annual net based off these numbers before the marketing. This is what it would be with the marketing. So this is the profit, the net profit projected using this ROI calculator. And then this is the profit from those 133 new patients in the next year. So you're gonna have 12 months of at least 133 new patients. That you really make most of the money, obviously, later on, because when they're starting, you know, everyone's starting every month. It's gonna this number is gonna increase a little more incrementally. That's why I put this table in here. So as you can see, February, we just assume a start in January. This 12.1 is reflected here. If we keep getting 12.1 patients, we're going to get 24, and then 36, and 48, times your average monthly payment equals your estimated monthly revenue from those new starts. And then it just adds it up. And I just put here, by the way, that's when this 5%, just to make it a little bit more accurate or reasonable. Let's say that starts in month 5, when you might consider having to make a change because of these new starts, right? And then this just helps show it in time, the actual increase based off a marketing campaign, because we're not going to get all the new leads at once. It's going to take a little time to kind of get that snowball going. But I also want to point out that often this average, and I kept this pretty low, by the way, because I want to be conservative. What actually happens, at least with my clients, is we'll get this 20, whatever it is, based off what we're doing, what our spend is, what services we're using. But you'll actually have months where we do a really aggressive campaign, or something hits for whatever reason, and you'll get 50, 100, 200 leads in 1 month. It depends what you're doing. So even though for the purposes of this calculator, we're showing a very linear curve of growth, that's really not generally what happens. You always should have a trend that's generally going up, but it's going to go up, it's going to spike, keep go up, spike. And if you have, and we do have some campaigns that we know are very effective, and they're just not used all the time generally. And we've gotten leads. We've gotten 800 leads in 1 month. That's not very common, but it does happen. And something like that completely changes this game. Because if you can convert 25% of those leads, if you have the capacity to reach out to all of them, then you all of a sudden have changed the whole year in 1 month, right? Or at least in the next couple of months when you're following up and converting them. So let's just, I wanted to point out, some of you saying this 5,500 is a good bit of money. Let me tell you the reason I put that number in there. If you're spending this much for a professional to manage your marketing, you get to a tipping point of which all of the main pieces of that methodology I showed you earlier are being taken care of. You're taking care of about 75% of those if you have this kind of spend. So you're not leaving any stone unturned. You're doing all the things that you know are going to continually grow the practice and build the brand and make it stronger and stronger. When you're doing that, you can take this number and you have consistent results with it. That's when you're like, okay, we need to open another office. I know that all my numbers are looking good. Let's just triple this number. All of a sudden, we're getting triple. It might not be 1 for 1. It might not be triple. Maybe it's 2.5 times, whatever. You're going to get to a point where you can increase your ad spend and you're going to get more patients. This doesn't work, for instance, if you have a very low management fee and you're paying someone who doesn't really know what they're doing and they're only doing Google Analytics and nothing else. They're not helping. Your website looks terrible. They're not helping with any of those conversion numbers. They're not doing a holistic campaign. You can't have predictable results when you do that. You can always put more money and get some sort of increase. But if you don't have an efficient conversion steps, conversion points, then you can't feel very confident that if you throw more money in Google Ads or Pinterest or Facebook, that you're going to get more starts out of it. But when you have gotten to that sweet spot, when you know everything's getting taken care of, the numbers have kind of evened out. We know our cost per click. We know our cost per conversion. We know basically that when we put this much money into the system, this many patients come out. That's why we named the company Ortho Sales Engine. We create that sales engine, a sales process, a system that when it's working properly, you can grow the practice as fast as you want because you can just put more and more money into the system and more patients come out. So that's when you're going to see something like, wow, I'm spending, let's say this person is spending $11,300, but they're getting a 428% ROI. That $135,000 investment made them $579,000 during that first 12 months and then $1.5 million extra dollars in that next year from those 500 extra starts. That's when you're cooking with gas. And that's why we suggest that whether you're having someone like us handle all of those pieces or you're doing it, we strongly suggest that you try to address as many of those steps, as many of those tactics and strategies as possible at the same time as you can. And whether you use a company like ours and they just do half of it for the really complex stuff, and you have a really great person on the inside of your practice that you feel like can learn it and do a good job, as long as everything's being addressed in a competent way, you might not see the growth as fast as it would be if someone who has years of experience is doing it, but it will grow. You will see that growth. It is almost impossible, in my opinion, to not see growth if you address all those points. But I do encourage you to enter your numbers into this calculator of what you're doing right now. See what the ROI is on your marketing spend and see where you can make improvements, gain efficiencies, and maybe spend more money where you didn't think you should because you can get a better ROI, or spend less because you're not getting the good ROI. If you have any questions about using this calculator, just email me. I'm happy to answer them. We can go do this together. I think that's kind of fun, so I'll be happy to do that with you. I love numbers. And I hope this was valuable to you. Take it easy.